One of the things I like to do in my own devotional life is to read stories of Christians, both from the near past and the distant past, who have been faithful followers of Jesus. I draw inspiration from them just to look at their lives and how they navigated difficult circumstances and how they praised and worshiped. So for me, it's very important as I try to be faithful following Jesus in my own life to read the stories of other people. And the person I want to focus on in this single take, very briefly, is that of St. Patrick. I first learned about St. Patrick in seminary when I took a church history course. I was really impressed with him and what he did and his faith and really the implications of his faith. Now, what you probably don't know, I mean, most people know he's the patron saint of Ireland, but what you probably don't know is he really wasn't Irish. He was born on the west coast of England. And again, there's no sure dates for his birth and death, but somewhere around 400 to 411 is when he was born. And when he was 16, there was a raiding party from Ireland that came and actually captured him and took him back to Ireland. And there he was sold into slavery to kind of a minor king in Armagh. And so he, the 16-year-old boy was captured, he was enslaved, and yet he made connections with other Christians, probably other slaves over there. And it was a time where his strength grew, believe it or not. He spent a lot of time praying. He wrote this. He wrote the Confessions after some time. And this is what he said about that experience. He goes, "After I came to Ireland and so tended sheep every day, I often prayed in the daytime, up to 100 prayers, and at night nearly as many. And I stayed in the forest and on the mountains, and before daylight I used to be roused to prayer in snow and in frost and rain. And I felt no harm, nor was there any inclination to take things easily in me, because I see now the Spirit seethed in me." In other words, his life of prayer encouraged him and deepened his relationship with God. The Spirit seeds within me is really a way of expressing his trust and passion in God and his love for life. After 6 years, he escaped from Ireland, and he made it back to his hometown on the west coast of England. But he almost had a vision like Paul. When Paul was traveling on I think it was the second missionary trip, there was a vision of an angel kind of beckoning him to come over to Macedonia. And he had these dreams about people from Ireland saying, come to Ireland and share the gospel. Come to Ireland and share the gospel. So he felt called to go back to be a missionary there, and against his parents' wishes and his family's wishes, because if he were caught and he went back to Ireland, it was very dangerous because an escaped slave could be executed. But he felt very powerfully that he needed to go back and become a missionary. Now, I don't have time in this little single take to discuss some of the things that happened to him, but he was a man of incredible faith. I mean, he faced down some of the kings, and they were pretty much Druid worshipers. And he had an amazing ministry there that had implications for centuries, actually. And so he was really responsible for helping to Christianize Ireland. And Ireland became a missionary sending center for centuries and centuries, especially some of the abbots from Ireland Christianized, went to Northern Europe, Western Europe, and helped Christianize Western Europe. So I just want to share a hymn. It's attributed to St. Patrick. Whether he wrote it or not, it's unclear, but it certainly captures his faith and the faith of those Irish monks who then spread the gospel throughout Europe. And so it's called The Breastplate of St. Patrick's, and I want to take a moment and read it right now. "I bind unto myself today the strong name of the Trinity, by invocation of the same, the three in one, and the one in three. I bind this day to me forever by power of faith, Christ's incarnation, his baptism in the Jordan River, his death on cross for my salvation, his bursting from the spiced tomb, his riding up the heavenly way, his coming at the day of doom. I bind unto myself today. I bind unto myself the power of the great love of the cherubim, the sweet well done in judgment hour, the service of the seraphim, confessor's faith, apostles' word, the patriarch's prayer, the prophet's scrolls, all good deeds done unto the Lord, and purity of virgin souls. I bind unto myself today the virtues of the starlit heaven, the glorious sun's life-giving ray, the whiteness of the moon at even, the flashing of the lightning free, the whirling wind's tempestuous shocks, the stable earth, the deep salt sea, around the old eternal rocks. I bind unto myself today the power of God to hold and lead, his eye to watch, his might to stay, his ear to hearken to my need, the wisdom of my God to teach, his hand to guide, his shield to ward, the word of God to give me speech, his heavenly host to be my guard. Against the demon snares of sin, the vice that gives temptation force, the natural lust that war within, the hostile men that mar my course. Or few or many, far or nigh, in every place and in all hours, against their fierce hostility, I bind to me these holy powers. Against all Satan's spells and wiles, against false words of heresy, against the knowledge that defiles, against the heart's idolatry, against the wizard's evil craft, against the death wound and the burning, the choking wave and poisoned shaft, protect me, Christ, till thy returning. Christ be with me, Christ within me, Christ behind me, Christ before me, Christ beside me, Christ to win me, Christ to comfort and restore me. Christ beneath me, Christ above me, Christ in quiet, Christ in danger, Christ in hearts of all that love me, Christ in mouth and friend of stranger. I bind unto myself the name, the strong name of the Trinity, by invocation of the same, the 3 in 1 and 1 in 3, of whom all nature hath creation, eternal Father, Spirit, Word. Praise to the Lord of my salvation. Salvation is of Christ the Lord.